need to continue awareness and talk about it to the general public and get more people educated and part of the solution. But you are on the forefront of that, so thanks for helping make this event happen. I encourage you to go find all these high school kids and stuff like that. In addition, we've got this whole Marshall Plan thing. So if you're not already signed up with a consortium, and what do I mean by that? Is when we're doing the grants for the Marshall Plan, we actually told people, the schools, that we would not give them a grant if they didn't bring private sector partners to the process. And so they're really encouraged, and they get extra credit for larger consortiums of not just a K-12, but community colleges, universities, and private employers all working together to collaborate together. Because I think that's the future. It's not about having an education silo and an employer silo. We're trying to make those lines get blurred and make things much more interactive between those two worlds. And that's part of the high school idea, some of the other things we're doing, and how do we leverage them up to put them on a much larger scale. The only thing we hope to have out of that is, as you find these wonderful people, we want you to bring even more people saying you should do all this in Michigan.
Keep the jobs in Michigan.
Because that has changed dramatically, and one thing you may not be aware of, because we lost a lot of young people for a lot of years. We had the lost decade. For the last 3 years, we've actually led the Great Lakes states in net inbound bachelor's degrees. Detroit's booming, Grand Rapids, Ann Arbor, a number of our larger communities are booming. We're actually doing programs now to do IT work in small communities. So we're trying to make it quite pervasive to say that it's part of our culture is to be on the forefront of new technologies and doing these things, and it's working. So we think we got a great place. It's a lot less expensive than typically where your headquarters may be, and where you may be looking for people and not finding them, or they have to drive an hour and a half to get to work.
Yes, sir.
So we think we've got the right place to have that happen, and we actually had some cool announcements on that forefront about bringing companies from the Valley. And I tell people my best marketing areas are now the Bay Area and New York City because of the cost parameters. Come to Michigan. And you can get great people that are going to stay a long time and be really happy. That's a good answer. So, any questions or things I can answer for you?
Governor,
yeah.
I was just curious. When you first came into office and you had like 1,000 things to do, how did cyber even get on the radar back then?
Well, it had to be. And just like I said in the speech, so if you looked at it, one of the things that was apparent from the state government side, and I think hopefully you've seen this, is we were way behind on our systems, and that's why it's been great to have Dave here and all the team. But I think we've probably invested $400 to $500 million at least in our own infrastructure from an IT perspective. That's huge. I mean, I used to make it as a joke, but it was a terrible statement, is to say, we got to get some of these systems done, like replacing Maine with Sigma before I leave office. Otherwise, I'm going to come back as a COBOL consultant.
I got to bring those jobs for you.
Because I'm one of the guys that actually learned COBOL. I said, this is not a good answer. And it's that thing. If you're going to do all this stuff, and with mobility, if you looked at the forward-looking thing, because, again, we were leading that world, is you got to be equally responsible. So I tell every time, it's like action, reaction. So every time I've talked about IT, it's like, okay, what's the cyber reaction that needs to go with it? Because to do one without the other is not responsible. And you've been a great partner. I appreciate ITC's been great.
For Earl Matthews, do you see that you'll add more additional cyber units in the Guard?
Yeah, I'm not sure the Guard. I think those units will grow in terms of size. The other part that I'd mention is the MIC3. If you have a chance to go talk to those folk, they're incredible folk. Or if you have people in your own organization, that we want to grow that. And the other one is that I didn't get to talk about because we've done a lot, but we want to balance that, is both what DTMB's grown in terms of their resources and the Michigan State Police. So we've had a lot of digital forensic expertise in the Michigan State Police. We're doing a lot on the dark web. In terms of exploration and work there, thanks to some of you who have been partners in helping us meet people and get access to some of those kind of tools. And so we're doing a lot of work that I don't stand up in front of the stage and talk about, but if you'd like, we'd be happy to discuss with you.
Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, first of all, thank you for what you've done. I think you set a great trend in the era when a lot of officials would not pay attention to cyber, you actually made that a top of the agenda of the state and push it hard. Many of the states followed suit. Obviously, you're regenerating the space. Now, after the seniority is done, how are you going to like lead the charge with other states? How are you going to like promote this? What's your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I'm still working that one out, to be open with you, because the interesting part is people ask what I'm going to do when I'm done, and I tell them my standard answer is whatever Sue, my wife, says. It's the initial reaction, which is a smart husband, first of all, I hope, although she'll challenge that assumption on a number of occasions. But the other part is I sort of want to let the dust settle a little bit. I owe her some time, but then I have an interest in public policy in several fields: mobility, cybersecurity, and I'm not sure whether that'll be through partnering with university, think tanks, foundations, or private organizations. But if people see value in continuing this dialogue, I'm happy to do it, because I think hopefully I've built a pretty good reputation and a good soapbox of people understanding when it talks about some of these topics. What I told people I don't want to do is any of the day-to-day political stuff. That's not what I'm interested in, because I think our society is woefully inadequate about talking about some of these long-term structural issues, right. Which would include mobility, cyber, but infrastructure, fiscal responsibility, civility. Civility is always on my list.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Thank you.
Governor, I appreciate seeing all the high school kids here today, and that's a great way for all of us to help fill the skills gap that we're woefully aware of. What can we, as private sector vendors, do to improve upon that and help fill those gaps? Because I mean, I've seen projections up to 2.5 million cyber jobs that are unable to get filled because we don't have the people yet. What do you suggest we could do as private sector vendors?
Yeah, there's three things at least. So it's really interacting with groups such as the high school challenge kids, those young people, and actually figuring out how we can find more coaches in schools where they're not. So again, this gets back to one of the coolest things I love to do is mentorship. And if you think about the people working in your organization, how many of them, if you help provide the environment to support them, and I'm not talking about big investments, but to encourage them, to give them time to go out and find the local schools around them, to go say, could they be a coach or could they mentor a teacher that if they had some help, they could be a coach? You've changed the paradigm there for that community, for that school. But then the same thing's true with some of our universities, and we'll be happy to get you integrated to those, to just the general public dialogue about all this, these interactions that we're having. So you play a huge role to be involved in the Marshall Plan, as I was talking about. Because a lot of it is people don't understand. I still come back to the premise, if you say you want to go do a software developer, what does that mean? Versus saying this is how you can make the world better, or this is the work you can do, and to do that you need these skill sets. So in a lot of cases, we get, when I say we, I believe I'm part of the world with you. I'm a reasonable IT guy. That we get caught up in our own shorthand talk and our own language versus saying we need to understand we're terrible at marketing about what we actually do and how we need to engage everyone else. Because when we speak, we talk to ourselves too much versus going to speak to other people and speaking to them in a way they can appreciate what we're saying. So it's that whole thing from mentorship to more communication. And when I say mentorship, it's inviting them to come visit your company. I mean, how much trouble would it be to, say you got this team of 3 or 2 or 3 schools, you say, okay, we're going to go find 4 schools around us and invite a dozen of these young people in to come hang out with us. We can have them come after school and show them around and have them have some experiences talking to our folk. And 1, you may get some great employees, but 2, just think how much farther along you are and they are. So we'd be happy to work with you, because as you guys get miles, I hope you come back and share it with us about what you may be doing in programs like that, because to be open, you may want to keep it to yourself, but if you look in the big picture, you're probably better off helping us understand so we can go get a whole bunch of other people to do the same thing, because it's building that critical mass. Having you find 2 or 3 people is not the best answer versus us figuring out how do we get 1,000 all fired up.
Sure.
Because you'd hire
right.
as many as you could get.
And I'd say help us out with how do we break down the barrier that we have created that said for you to be successful, you have to have a 4-year degree. No, you don't need to have a 4-year degree. So you got the whole plethora, but I needed the jobs out there to also advertise for that. And you got to figure out how to do that because otherwise you might get 4,000 entries and you only have one job. But work with them. That comes back to the mentorship side of the house, and then how do you do these internships and the certificates and that kind of stuff. Because you get people excited about doing something that's productive, they'll stay with it then.
Okay, they'll keep growing. Well, thank you though. Thanks for coming to the conference. Hopefully you're fired up. Come back next year. Bring friends.
Yes.
And hopefully have a chance to interact with the young people and the other great people we have from the state. So, thank you.
Thanks.